I've heard staff members' wives say this. They hired my husband, not me. They're not paying me anything. So I'll be at church on Sunday morning. I mean, I've heard this. And in some ways, I have to say, is the doctor's wife expected to be at every appointment he does?
Right.
I mean, really, it's a really interesting thing being a pastor's wife.
Yeah.
So they hired your husband. Did they hire you? I am so glad you're here today. We're going to be talking about something that a lot of people don't talk about, and it's the relationships between a lead pastor's wife and the staff pastor's wives. It can be messy at times, and it can even be uncomfortable. In the magazine Christianity Today, they said there's bound to be stress in relationships on staff. It's going to happen. And there's even a double qualifier that Paul puts in Romans 12:18, talking about relationship. If it is all possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace. In other words, you can do the best you can, but there still may be struggles. But we want to make sure that whatever does depend on us, we do it to the best of our ability. And that's what we're going to talk about today, the relationship between those that work together for the kingdom of God. Welcome. I am so excited to introduce to you two good friends of mine. First of all, I have Rachel Hopkins. She's a lead pastor's wife in Everson, Washington at Valley Church, and she's also a substitute teacher and a mom. And then I have Kayla Bridgewater. Kayla is a staff pastor's wife in Neighborhood Church in Bellevue, Washington, and she's a mom too and has just been approved for missions. So let's give these two ladies a hand. Woo! We're glad you're here. Yay! Yay! So I will be honest, I was a little bit concerned because we really wanted to talk about this topic. But to find a lead pastor's wife and a staff pastor's wife that would come and be honest, I went through a lot of people and they're like, oh, I can't talk about that. You know, I'd get fired. There's just like, there's a little bit of like, it's something that we don't talk about. And that's why I think it's important that we do talk about it, because people are struggling in some of these areas. How can we give them encouragement? How can we give them direction? So, Rachel, as a lead pastor's wife, I just want to ask you, I know it's been kind of recent over the last few years, your church really grew and suddenly you guys were putting on staff.
Yes.
And I remember you sent out an SOS on
did.
Messenger to a bunch of senior pastors' wives, and you said, help, what do I do? Yes. I still remember that, and I'm like, oh, I'll pray for you.
Yeah, I didn't get a whole lot of info.
No, everyone's like, good luck.
Yes.
But I knew that I loved your heart. You want to do it right. You want to lead your staff wives well. So I just want to ask you, do you think you can be friends with your staff wives, the staff ministers' wives? Do you think you have to be friends with them? And to what level of friendship can you be with them?
Yeah, that's tricky. Yes, I do think you can be friends with your staff wives. I have one of my staff wives is a dear friend of mine. So yes, you can. And I think also with all of our staff, I want there to be a level of relationship that they know that they can come to me. I'm also their pastor. I want them to feel that and know that. I want them to know that on any level they can come to me. They can share joys, they can share trials, because I love them. So I want that relationship with all of them. And whether it can go into a deep, deep friendship where we go and get pedicures and French fries, that depends on the person and how we're doing. But I do want there to be a level of friendship because I'm not only one of their bosses, I'm their pastor, and I want them to know that they're loved by me.
So, but to take this to another level, so let's say you've got that friendship going, you're doing the pedicures, you've had French fries dipped in chocolate with them, whatever, you know? But all of a sudden, this staff member's wife, let's say that he's not really producing like your husband thinks he should, and your husband's kind of struggling with them, and they've had some discussions, and you know that this is going on. How does your friendship continue with her?
Yeah.
I mean, those are the things that are real out there.
Right, and that's tricky. I think I will separate that in my mind. So if my husband is dealing with something with some of our staff, and I'm going and hanging out with my friend, my staff, I will separate that matter. because it is different. It is different, and maybe it might cross paths at our dining room table. We'll have them over or whatever. But in those moments, she is my friend, and we have a relationship outside of staff. And I would hope that one day when our staff goes in there at another church or whatnot, that we still have that relationship. So that's important to me to separate that.
If she brought it up to you and said, I heard that your husband, like, what would you say to her in that moment?
I'm constantly praying in my head.
Yeah.
Jesus, help me. Give me the words. Help me to be wise, because it's very easy to be led by emotions, and I don't want that. I do not want to be led by emotions. So I am praying, and I might just say, hey, you know what? This is where Kyle, this is where my husband is coming from. These are some areas where maybe we have a greater overview picture of what we're looking for. And so that's where he's coming from. I'll try to explain it better. Because sometimes men don't explain things as well as women do.
What?
So communication might not be great. And so I will try to maybe communicate a little bit in a different way, always supporting my husband and always praying and thinking, if this was me and someone was having a difficult time with my husband, how would I be
That's
feeling?
a great way to look at it. That's really good. And that's kind of having empathy there and knowing it goes both ways. So, Kayla, your husband's on staff.
He is.
So you're that staff member's wife. Do you want relationship with the lead pastor's wife?
I do, and I have a great relationship with them, and we we go and get pedicures, and we'll go and do dinners and go shopping, and I think, there's some who don't have that relationship where they go and do stuff like this, but as long as you have the same goals, the same mindset, I think you're going to work well as a team, and you don't have to be the best of friends, but you do have to respect one another.
And that's a great thing to bring up, because not everyone, so I don't want anyone out in the audience like they're not getting pedicures with their lead pastor's wife going, oh, we're failing. It might not be, because you might not click. Your personalities might not even click, and they might not even like pedicures, which then they shouldn't even be on staff with you, right? But you still need to, I love that, respect one another and remember what you're about. I had one senior pastor's wife mention this to me. I was talking to her about what we're going to talk about, and she goes, what I really struggle with staff members' wives is they aren't intuitive in where they need to be. Isn't that, I thought that was a very good question. Our statement, they don't really know where they need to be. And when I asked a little bit more information, it's like they only show up for the bare minimal things at church, like maybe Sunday morning. So what do you think your responsibility is as a wife of a staff member?
Well, I think, I'm always in prayer, and sometimes when I go to, church, and things are kind of like going rough, and I'm frustrated or I'm angry, I kind of just pray to God and just lead me today, and let's just leave it, and we're here for you, and let's just, work on your kingdom and what you want us to do.
So Rachel, one time I heard Rachel and her sister having a conversation. Her sister's a staff pastor's wife, and Rachel was saying, this person should have been there, and her sister's like, I wouldn't have been there, and they were like, it was a great moment, so give me your view on that. As a lead pastor's wife, and you show up, you've got this big event planned, and you get there, and half of your staff pastor's wives aren't there, and you're wanting everyone to buy in, this is going to be a great event, and then you look out, and they're not there.
That's frustrating.
Okay, it's happened, okay.
That's frustrating. So when that happens, if that happens, I think that has happened in the past, and I will have ladies in our church ask me, well, why isn't this person here? Why isn't that person there? And in my mind, I'm like, exactly. Why aren't they here?
Hey,
why aren't they
yes.
here? And I think that's difficult. I would expect our staff to want to be involved in the life of the church. And if the life of the church is various events, various community things, you don't have to be at everything. but you should be at most things. That's kind of my thing. The community needs to see you there. Your people need to see you there. They need to see that you are involved and we are a team and we support one another, whether it's your area of ministry or not. So I do expect them to be at most things. And if they have something going on and there's something in their life, I really do try to let them off the hook. Like, yes, I get it. I have 4 kiddos. I know all those things. But for the benefit of our church and our ministry, I want us to have a united team, and I want our staff to have our back, and I want us to have their back. So if they're leading something, I want to be a support to them.
Yeah.
If I'm leading something, I need them to be a support to me. And sometimes just showing up and being there lets me know that they're there for me. I can depend on them, and it lets our church people know, wow, they work together. They work together as a team.
They're
We have
together.
one vision, one passion.
So if someone doesn't show up a lot and you're starting to get frustrated, how do you handle that? What would you say to Kayla? Let's say she's not been like there the last big events you've had, and you're starting to get a little frustrated. Kayla's sitting here with you, and she's like so stinking sweet. What do you say to her?
Again, I pray.
Tell her.
Yeah.
I pray. So in my head, I'm praying and asking the Holy Spirit to guide my words, because I do not want to be led by emotions,
Right.
because inside I'm frustrated. But I don't want that to come out in a Rachel way.
Right.
I want it to come out in a full of the Spirit, full of wisdom way.
Totally.
So I might just start by saying, why haven't you been there? What's going on? Like, where were you when we had this event? Why did you feel like you didn't need to be there? So I'll put it back on
Right.
you, and you really got to race in your mind to find a good excuse
Yeah.
to share with me. So I will try very hard to ask a lot of questions, putting it back on you, the whole time praying.
Yeah.
Whole time praying and hoping that those responses are not going to trigger any other frustration.
Yeah, and Kayla,
Yeah.
if that came to you, let's say your pastor's wife, who we know would not ever probably do that to you because number one, you're at everything and she's sweet. But how would you feel in that moment? Would you feel attacked? Would you
Yeah.
feel, what would you feel as a staff member's wife?
Honestly, I probably would feel attacked because if something did come up and let's say I didn't want to come because I was running late or whatever, and I wanted to get a coffee, and but
And that's really important.
but yeah, I would, to be honest, I'd feel attacked. But again, I would, from my side, I would pray through it, and I wouldn't want to make irrational, like decisions or comments, and just pray through it because we're all human and we all go through hard stuff. And
I love that both of you bring the prayer aspect in because that's so important. I love that Rachel says not to let our emotions get in because I don't know about you, but my emotions can start rising high if I don't feel that you're hitting the mark. So sorry. And that you're not supporting our ministry, and we're so buyed in because we're the lead pastors that sometimes I expected them to be as in as I was, and I had to know they were to a point, but they're never going to be where I'm at as the lead pastors. And I have to have grace there for them because they're not going to be right there. So when I found out one of our staff members' wives went over to my best friend's wife and they watched football on a Sunday night and didn't come to church, and I was devastated. And I thought they were both not even going to make it to heaven. I had to get past the emotion of it. I look back now and think I should have skipped church and gone with them. But I really, in that moment, I probably needed a break, to be honest. But in the moment, because I just felt kind of betrayed. It's a kind of a betrayal feeling. Does that sound like your friends that are supposed to be on this journey with you? In Christianity Today, they had a great article on the staff relationships, and 2 things they said that cause conflict, and you guys have both talked about it a little bit today, is lack of communication and lack of relationship. Both of you have talked about that. So I think like the crucial conversation you had to have with her, like I need you at things, probably if you had communication up front, she knew what you expected her to be at. If you had a great relationship where you knew one another well enough that you knew you had each other's back, I think if you build on those things, then the other doesn't happen as often. And if it does, then you're not felt attacked because you know she has your back. So I just wanted to ask you, as you bring on staff, And do you sit down with the staff pastor's wife, and do you let them know right up front what your expectations of them, as far as their attendance, as far as what they're going to be doing in your church? Do you do that with them?
Right. Well, honestly, we're brand new to staff, and we did not do that. And it's kind of hard to go back and backpedal that.
Yeah. So just fire them and start again?
Right.
Oh,
Just start
sorry.
over.
Just kidding. Okay.
No, so I think building that relationship and having communication at the same time is really important, because we didn't start like that, and communication is everything. So voicing my expectations is important, or else the anger that wells up inside of me shouldn't be there, because I didn't let my expectations be known.
And so you're expecting something, and here Kayla doesn't even know
doesn't
it.
know.
Yeah.
So
Right.
you're angry at her.
Right.
And how does that help your relationship?
Right. Yeah. So if you can't be there, just call me, text
Right.
me. Just
Yeah.
that communication is
Totally,
so
yeah.
big. For me to communicate that I wanted you there, and for you to say, hey, I wanted to be there, I couldn't be there because of this, that like makes that anger just go right on down.
Right. Totally.
So communication is important.
Yeah.
And Kayla, how do you feel about that? Because really, I've heard staff members' wives say this. They hired my husband, not me. They're not paying me anything. So I'll be at church on Sunday morning. I mean, I've heard this. I never said that, or personally any really good friends of mine. But, I mean, I have, and in some ways I have to say, is the doctor's wife expected to be at every appointment he does?
Right.
I mean, really, it's a really interesting thing being a pastor's wife.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
they hired your husband. Did they hire you?
I believe so, because we work together great as a team, and I do. Not always are going to be there for all the events or whatever, but I just try your best and try, because people are going to see that you and your husband work well as a team, and the ones we're leading are going to be like, wow, they work great as a team, and they're trying their best to be, there. And I will.
But do you ever feel like there's unrealistic expectations on you? Have you never ever felt like, wow, they're expecting that from me and I'm not getting a paycheck?
No, honestly.
Are you like the sweetest staff member's wife? Do you want to
sweet.
hire her?
Right?
Oh my
Yes.
So sweet.
I honestly, it helps to work with just great leadership.
I think a lot of it is our relationship with Christ, so our relationship with others, but knowing that we are called as a ministry's wife, and being called doesn't always come with a paycheck.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think if you can settle that in your heart as a staff member's wife, then it doesn't feel like unrealistic expectations.
Yeah.
It just feels like this is part of our calling, and this is why we're here.
How do you, as a lead pastor's wife, how do you, when you have a staff member come to you and say, I don't need my pastor's wife, I need my friend, how do you draw that line? For me, I am who I am. I'm a pastor's wife, and I'm your friend. So how do you lead that conversation when they really need their pastor's wife and their friend, but they really need that direction? How would you handle that situation?
Similar, I am who I am. I think in the way that I would respond, I'd kind of, in my mind, try to separate that Rachel, pastor's wife, a little bit, and maybe view this person as I would my sister. If, like, my sister was coming to me, I try to put myself in that person's shoes. What is this person needing right now? She is probably not needing me to tell her where she is struggling or what she needs to do. She probably needs a listening ear, a shoulder to cry on. What would I need in this moment? And really just take a step back and put myself in her shoes and say, what would I be wanting in this situation?
Good answer.
I've been both in the role as a staff pastor's wife and a lead pastor's wife, and I would love to know from the staff pastor's wife is what is the one thing that you cherish about your relationship between your staff pastor and your lead pastor's wife?
I just love how she leads me and guides me, and she is always there. And she's just a phone call away, and she's my neighbor because we live right by each other on the same property. And I'm so blessed by her, and she's taught me so many things. And her and Daryl are like our mentors, and we look up to them. And
She's blessed you. Yes. No, I want people to know that they can have that too, because you have a very special thing with your senior pastor and his wife. and it's something wonderful. And she has spoke wisdom into your life, and she loves you, and you can see that. And you're trying to find something to say and say it, but that is a beautiful thing. And I really true that can happen as we all look to God, love God with our heart and soul, remember why we're doing what we're doing.
Yeah.
So, no, that's a beautiful testimony of something beautiful
Yeah. That's
right.
that we all want. And it maybe is not happening for you right now,
Yeah.
but we want that, and it can happen. I think
Yeah.
that's important to know. So let's give a great hand
Oh.
to our guest. So today we learned about relationships. And you know what? It's not always pretty. And sometimes there's struggles in the staff relationships at a church. But what we have to do is work through them. We need to communicate. We need to have relationship with one another. Because you know what? All that's a diversion. And what we really need to be doing is furthering the kingdom of God. We need to be working together. Even if we have diversity, even if we don't always agree, we need to be working together because that's the most important thing. Because as we're squabbling inside the doors of our church between staff, people outside your church don't know Jesus. Don't get diverted with inside what's going on, but do your best in this relationship with Jesus Christ. Do your best to give out your expectations to those senior pastors' wives or to your staff pastors' wives. And then come together because people are dying outside your doors. Don't let it be all about you. Let it be about them. That's what I have to say today, because then you know what? Even though it's messy, it's going to be a happy mess because you're going to be furthering the kingdom of God, and people are going to be coming in the middle of your happy mess, and they're going to be finding Jesus, and that's what it's all about. So work on those relationships. And for my live audience, I just want to encourage you. I'm working on those relationships, and so I have a little gift for them. I'm sorry I can't mail one to each of you, but I have something for you, because working in relationships for me is all about coffee. So for each of you here in my audience, I have a mug for you that says Off Script with Debbie Season 3. Woo! Take it! Woo! Yay! Hi, this is Debbie, and if you so much enjoyed this episode, like you are just out of control right now, then you need to call all your friends right now, text them, and say, oh, my word, you need to get on Off Script with Debbie, and then you need to like it, and then you need to subscribe, because you know what? You don't want to miss an episode. Thanks.